I'm Clark Ross, and I teach economics here at Davidson College. Now we're going to talk about the long-run aggregate supply curve. In the long run, all input prices, all output prices are considered variable and competitive. As a result, we assume that in the long run, each market, input market and output market, will have a market clearing price. Thus, we will be at a full employment. As a result, our long-run aggregate supply curve is going to become vertical at what we might call the full employment or maximum sustainable level of real GDP. Let's look at this graphically. Again, as with the short run, on the vertical axis, I'm going to have the aggregate price level in the economy. On the horizontal axis, I'm going to have real GDP in dollars. And now I'm going to show you this long-run aggregate supply curve, which is vertical, and it's at what I could call the full employment level of real GDP, or maximum sustainable level of real GDP. You will note that this maximum sustainable level of real GDP, or QF, is invariant to the price level. You also should note that in the short run, it's possible to produce beyond the maximum sustainable level. Let's look at a short-run aggregate supply curve. Do you see if you are producing at point X, you are to the right or above the maximum sustainable level of real GDP? In subsequent analysis, you'll see that this is not sustainable and that the economy over time moves back towards the QF. The actual level of QF is determined by the availability of inputs and the state of technology, showing the maximum sustainable amount of real GDP that can be produced over time. At this maximum sustainable level of real GDP, or where long-run aggregate supply curve is vertical, we have no cyclical unemployment or no involuntary unemployment. We do have some unemployment as people are between jobs. Frictional unemployment, we call that, as you may remember. The actual amount of it represents what we could call the natural rate of unemployment or the full employment unemployment rate. But again, recall, these individuals are between jobs, meaning that they are going to settle eventually in a job, and that is why we do not consider them involuntarily unemployed. Finally, you should note our long-run aggregate supply curve can move, and in particular, it can shift to the right. What would it mean if it shifted to the right and became LRAS prime at a higher level of maximum sustainable real GDP, or QF prime? Well, this increase in the potential of the economy is called economic growth by economists. How does it occur? Well, with more inputs or with technological progress, a greater maximum output level can be produced. This is economic growth. It is also what you learned with a rightward shift or outward shift of a production possibility frontier for exactly the same reasons. Increased input use, technological progress shifts outward the production possibilities frontier. We now have an understanding of aggregate supply in the immediate, in the short run, and in the long run. Now, let's look at some exercises that help us assess our understanding of long-run aggregate supply.